Imagine flying across borders but being a prisoner in the sky. For 8 years, she served as a North Korean flight attendant trusted by the regime, traveling to Beijing and beyond, but never free to choose her own life. In 2024, she and 2 fellow crew members made a split-second decision in a Beijing airport restroom that would cost them everything they knew. This is the story of 3 women who traded their families for freedom. If these stories matter to you, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Your support helps us bring these untold stories to light. Together, we can be a voice for those who cannot speak. I was born and raised on Changkwang Street in Pyongyang. As a kid, I used to stare up at airplanes and dream. My father worked for the party. My mother was a school teacher. My older brother was an officer in the Korean People's Army. In North Korea, that meant our songbun, your family background and political class, was considered good. And back then, that decided everything. College, jobs, your whole future. When I turned 24, I passed the selection test to become a flight attendant for Air Koryo, North Korea's national airline. The competition was brutal. You had to be at least 160 centimeters tall. You had to look pretty. Your songbun had to be clean. You had to speak English. The day I got accepted, my mother was so happy she cried. "My daughter became a flower in the sky," she said, wiping her eyes. In our neighborhood, I was the only one who ever made it into Air Koryo. Training was punishing. Every morning at 6, we got up for exercises. We practiced how to walk, how to smile. It felt like the kind of kindness training department stores do, only stricter. And on top of that, there was ideological training. We memorized phrases like, "by the benevolence of our great leader," again and again. Back then, it didn't even feel strange. That was the only world I'd ever known. My first flight was the Pyongyang to Beijing route. The moment the plane lifted off, my heart started pounding. The Taedong River outside the window shrank. Pyongyang turned into something I could cover with my hand. One thought filled my head. So this is what it feels like to fly. On board, I handed out meals and poured drinks. I sold duty-free items. When foreign passengers smiled and said, "Thank you," it gave me a quiet pride. In Beijing, we stayed at a designated hotel. We were never allowed to wander alone. We moved in groups, and a Baoibu state security officer watched us. Still, even the hotel lobby felt like another planet. Foreigners laughing freely, talking loudly, taking photos on smartphones. It was different. So different, it made me uneasy. I worked as a flight attendant for 8 years. Beijing, Vladivostok, Shenyang. I traveled those routes again and again, and I earned more than most people back home. In North Korea, if you can get even a little hard currency, it feels like heaven. I sometimes bought Chinese goods at the market and resold them in Pyongyang's Jangmadang informal markets. I bought clothes for my mother, cigarettes for my brother. I told myself our family was doing okay in Pyongyang. Back then, I thought I was satisfied. Or maybe I was just lying to myself. I had never even imagined another life. I believed that if you worked hard and did what the party told you, that was enough. It didn't take long to learn how wrong that was. Starting in the summer of 2023, something began to feel off. On the plane, foreign passengers were always on their phones, playing games, watching movies, messaging someone. We couldn't do that. In North Korea, even if you have a smartphone, it only connects to an internal network. The real internet is out of reach. I had always accepted that as normal until I kept seeing the outside world up close. One day, I was resting in the Beijing airport terminal. I noticed Chinese travelers watching the news on their phones. I glanced over just for a second. There was a story about Kim Jong-un, and what it said didn't match anything we were taught back home. My body went cold. I turned away fast. If a security officer saw that I had looked, I could be finished. Back at the hotel, the thought wouldn't let go of me. Jong, my roommate, asked, "Uni, what are you thinking about?" I hesitated, then lowered my voice. "Jong, aren't you ever curious about the world outside?" Her eyes widened. She checked the door, then the window. Then she whispered, "Me too, Unni. I've been thinking that lately." That night, We pulled the blanket over our heads and talked in near silence. The streets of Beijing, the people at the airport, how free they looked, how natural it seemed for them to live that way. Jong said, "Uni, I think Hyunju feels the same." Hyunju was a junior flight attendant, 3 years younger than me. A few days later, the three of us met in the hotel room. What Hyunju said next made my heart slam. "Uni's last time, I used the hotel Wi-Fi and watched YouTube. We all knew how dangerous that was." Hyunju kept going, voice shaking. I watched a short South Korean drama clip, and seeing how people live it made everything we learned feel like a lie. From that point on, something changed between us. Outwardly, we acted normal. But we didn't need words anymore. One glance was enough. All three of us were thinking the same thing. We can't keep living like this. But none of us knew what to do. And when I thought about our families in Pyongyang, it felt like my chest was tearing apart. In the fall of 2023, the atmosphere shifted hard. We were told surveillance over overseas dispatch staff would be tightened. Ideological review sessions increased. The pressure to monitor and report on one another got worse. We had to write down who acted strange, who talked privately with foreigners, everything. Then one day, a senior flight attendant vanished. I came to work in the morning and she was just gone. No explanation. Only she transferred to another department. But we knew what that usually meant. Later, a rumor spread that she had watched a Korean movie while in China, that it was discovered, that she was sent to a political prison camp. After that, we became even more careful. We stopped talking freely in the hotel. On the plane, we barely exchanged words, only careful looks. Jong said she started having nightmares every night. In them, security officers broke down the door and dragged her away. Hyunju could barely eat. She kept thinking about her parents in Pyongyang. If she made one mistake, her family could be punished too, guilt by association. My home wasn't safe from it either. My mother asked on the phone, "Misun, are you okay these days? You don't look well." I lied and said I was fine. Just tired. I couldn't tell her the truth. If she knew what was in my head, it felt like her heart might stop. In the spring of 2024, things got worse. The party began restricting the families of overseas dispatch workers, keeping them in Pyongyang. It was basically taking them hostage. My mother suddenly got notified at work that she couldn't leave Pyongyang for the time being. My brother's unit movement was restricted too. Every time I returned from Beijing, a security officer visited our home and questioned my mother. That's when it hit me. We weren't free people. We flew in the sky, but we lived inside an invisible prison. And escaping that prison would demand a price so high I could barely breathe. Leaving your family behind forever was a terror I can't fully explain. One night in May 2024, the three of us made the final decision. In our Beijing hotel room, Jong spoke first. "Honest, I can't live like this anymore, even if I die." Her voice was trembling. Hyunju nodded, eyes filling with tears. I stayed silent for a long time, then forced the words out. "Then on our next Beijing flight we go. We go to the South Korean embassy." The moment I said it, my lips shook. This wasn't just a plan. It was a declaration that we might never see our families again. That we might die. If we failed, we would be sent to a political prison camp, and our families could be punished too. But staying was also a kind of death. We made a detailed plan. Our next Beijing flight was scheduled for July 15th. The return flight would leave at 3:00 p.m. About an hour before departure, we would go into the airport restroom and change out of uniform. We had already prepared ordinary clothes underneath. Then we would take a taxi to the South Korean embassy. Hyunju spoke some Chinese, so she would give the address to the driver. The biggest fear was our families. Jong had elderly parents in Pyongyang. Hyunju had a younger brother. I had my mother and my brother. We all knew what could happen to them if we disappeared. But living while your family is held hostage isn't life either. One day, I called home. My mother asked, "Misun, when are you coming home next?" I couldn't answer. My throat closed up because I knew it might be our last call. "Mom, I love you," I said. "Thank you for giving birth to me, for raising me." She laughed softly. "Why are you talking like that all of a sudden? Is something wrong?" "No," I lied. "I'm just grateful." After the call, I cried for a long time. Jong and Hyunju did too. We held each other and made the only promise we could. Let's succeed. And if Korea reunifies someday, we'll meet again. It was the only comfort we had. July 15th, 2024 became the longest day of my life. From the moment we boarded in Pyongyang, it felt like my heart might explode. I grabbed Yoonjong's hand beside me. Her palm was soaked in sweat. Hyunju sat in the seat ahead. She turned and looked back at us. No words, just eyes. Ready? Yes. We landed at Beijing airport around 1100 a.m. 4 hours remained until our return flight. We tried to act normal. We ate lunch with co-workers. We walked past duty-free shops. But my mind kept snapping back to the clock. At 200 p.m., we headed for the restroom. Inside a stall, I took off my uniform. Underneath, I changed into ordinary clothes we had prepared. The moment the uniform came off, tears spilled out. For 8 years, that uniform had been my pride. Letting it go felt like a funeral. But there was no going back. We walked out of the airport and hailed a taxi. Hyunju spoke in Chinese. Please take us to the South Korean embassy. The driver nodded and pulled away. Inside the car, no one spoke. I kept checking behind us, again and again, terrified we were being followed. After about 30 minutes, the taxi stopped. Here, the driver said. We stepped out and looked up. A Korean flag, the Tagukgi, was flying in the wind. My legs went weak. We did it, Eunjung whispered. We knocked. A staff member opened the door and stared. My voice shook. We're from North Korea. We defected. Please help us. The staff member's face tightened. He motioned us inside. The door closed. All three of us collapsed and cried. Fear, relief, guilt, everything at once. The 100 days inside the embassy felt like hell. On the outside, we were safe. Inside my head, nothing was safe. Night after night, the same nightmares came. Security officers breaking down the embassy door, dragging us away. Our families being tortured in prison camps. Sleep became impossible. North Korea was surely searching for us. The Boebu would pressure the Chinese authorities. Embassy staff told us that North Korean officials kept demanding that criminals be handed over. Criminals! As if wanting freedom was a crime. The worst pain was thinking about family. What was happening to my mother right now? Was she being interrogated? What about my brother? What about Yoonjong's elderly parents? Hyunju cried every night, calling her younger brother's name. All we could do was hold each other up. We found freedom first, we said. Someday, our families will be safe too. If reunification happens, the embassy staff treated us well. They fed us. They showed us South Korean dramas. They helped us with language. Even Korean sounded different outside the North. Comrade became friend. Radio sounded slightly different. At first it felt awkward. Over time it became familiar. After about 3 months, we finally heard the news. Permission for us to go to South Korea had been approved. Negotiations with the Chinese side had concluded. We wouldn't leave through Beijing airport. We would be moved quietly through another airport and placed on a flight to Korea. Hearing that brought joy and a new kind of fear. It meant we were truly cutting the last thread. It meant separation would become permanent. The night before departure, the three of us talked until morning. No regrets, we said. We chose this. We can live freely now. And if Korea reunifies, we'll go back. To Pyongyang. It was the only promise we could still make. In October 2024, I finally set foot on South Korean soil. When the plane touched down at Incheon International Airport, I looked out the window. Even at night, the city glowed. Buildings glittered. Cars moved non-stop. So this is the South, Hyunju murmured. As we stepped off the plane, South Korean officials were waiting. You've been through a lot, they said. Welcome to the Republic of Korea. Hearing that, tears came again. We had done it. We had survived. Then the screening process began. They had to verify we were truly North Korean and not spies. At first I was terrified. Another investigation. Another set of questions. But it was different from the North. There were no threats, no violence. People spoke calmly. They listened. They told us we had endured something awful. After that, we were taken to Hanawon, the government resettlement center, where North Korean defectors learn how to live in South Korea. For 3 months, we studied everything: South Korean speech and manners, work preparation, money management, how to shop at a supermarket, how to ride the subway. Everything that looked simple from the outside had to be learned from scratch. The most shocking thing was a phone. Here, a smartphone could do everything: banking, ordering items, video calls with friends, things I never would have believed. I searched online for news about North Korea. I still couldn't find anything about my family. But reading about what was happening back there made my heart ache. At night, Jong, Hyunju, and I would talk in our room. Did we do the right thing? Yes, we answered each other. We did. Some nights we cried until our throats hurt. Then we wiped our faces and tried again the next morning, because this was the path we chose. After Hanawon, stepping into society felt like landing on another planet. People spoke fast. Streets were crowded. Everything cost more than I expected. At first I struggled constantly. I started working part-time at a convenience store. When customers spoke quickly, I couldn't catch the words. Some people asked, "Are you from North Korea?" Still, I refused to quit, because I still wanted to fly. My dream now was to become a flight attendant for Korean Air. In the north, I flew under surveillance. Here, I believed I could fly as a free person. So I started studying English again. I trained service skills again. Jong began learning cooking. Hyunju entered university. And still, the people we left behind never left my mind. How is my mother living now? Has she grown much older? Is she sick? What happened to my brother? Was he punished because of me? Jong's parents. Hyunju's younger brother. Thinking about them feels like a knife turning in my chest. Even so, I keep telling myself this: I have to live well here. If we build a life, it can become hope for those still trapped there. And if reunification happens one day, I will be the first to fly back to Pyongyang. I want to find my mother. And I want to go wearing the uniform of a Korean air flight attendant. I want to tell her, "Mom, I really became someone who flies freely." To those still in the north, I want to say this: freedom is precious. I didn't understand how precious until I had it. Being able to think, to speak, to dream without fear feels like a miracle. It's terrifying, I know, but find your courage. You can find freedom too. And until the day Korea becomes one again, we will be here, waiting. These days, when I look at the night sky, one thought keeps coming back. Can you see these same stars from Pyongyang? Is my mother looking at them too? Same sky, two different worlds. But I still believe we will meet again. Until that day comes, I will live here with everything I have grateful, and never forgetting what freedom costs.